3, 4.
Instant karma is the result of all of our actions. Every action that we make has a consequence. What we put out to others comes back to us, and this is called the ripple effect. We stand for a positive reflection of self and others. We give respect, we honor traditions and cultures, and we share that knowledge. What we as humanity do as one is up to us, and it's time to make that choice. In an era where truth is buried like a lost treasure and history is being rewritten, we believe now is that time to correct this. See, truth is like the sun, and eventually that light comes out. And here on Instant Karma, we feel it is our purpose that we all shine on together as one. Thank you for joining Instant Karma Show. I'm Valerie Clark. Today I have special guest T. Pascal. T is a father, husband, writer, and what he refers to himself as a tech geek. T. Pascal has been writing 23 years and published several short stories. Professionally, he has 20 years experience as a computer systems engineer working to support some of the busiest websites on the internet. T has been maintaining various blogs and writing platforms for a decade. He has been committed to writing at least one medium quality writing post per day to hone his craft. Thank you for joining me today, Mr. T. Pascal.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That intro sounds so formal and professional, and I wrote it. I can't even believe it.
Oh, well, you are formal and professional, and you're one of the most creative writers that I have actually come across.
Thank you for having me.
You do have some of your personal writings with you, and it shows your diversity in your writing skills. Would you mind sharing them with us?
Yeah, so I chose a piece that you had mentioned that you liked.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I know the piece.
Yeah. Dragoon?
Yes.
I think it makes a difference, too, when you read it out loud. Like, when I was hearing you read back me what I had written about myself, it just changes somehow. It seems different, so I'm really going to enjoy reading this. All right, it's called Dragoon, with 2 O's, by T. Pascal. The dragon is the most fearsome and energetic of the zodiac animals. The dragon is full of aggression, passion, masculinity, hardness, and yang. Did you notice that all of the zodiac animals, the dragon is the one that does not exist in the present day? This is the story of how the dragon became extinct. Long ago and far away, about 5,000 years ago in central China, the next Emperor Dragon was born. He was the Prince of the Yellow Emperor, the strongest and wisest ruler of all the world. In particular, the Yellow Emperor had unified China with his superior strategy, intellect, and negotiation. The young dragon was willful and passionate. He pursued any wind that caught his fancy. He attacked local villagers just to eat their pigs and cows. He stomped on the snakes and rats in disdain. He flew in the sky and shot down the rooster for fun. He chased and herded the horses until they dropped to the ground from exhaustion. He grabbed the tiger's tails and swung them around gleefully. His father, the Yellow Emperor, was quite displeased with his son. So the Yellow Emperor banished his son from the palace to wander the earth until the dragon would gain understanding and wisdom in the world. The dragon snarled and cursed his father, vowing to wreak havoc upon the world and raise an army to return to destroy his father's carefully crafted kingdom. The dragon flew south to Canton, now Guangzhou, where he boarded a Korean air flight to San Francisco. He then took the Amtrak sleeper car to Chicago, and from there he took a cruise up the Erie Canal to Newfoundland, and another cruise across the Atlantic to Calais via Dover. In frustration at being stuck in a sucky part of France, the dragon hitchhiked across Europe and Turkey to Israel. About the time that the dragon had smitten the Philistine army because he was hungry and tired, it started to rain. It rained for 3 days and 3 nights. And the newspaper said that it would rain for another 37 days and 37 nights. So the dragon thought it would be wise to find shelter. He had heard of a man named Noah who was building a motel that would float, and that Noah had been looking for 2 of every kind of animal. Now the dragon was only one of a kind of an animal in this part of the world. But he figured he could scare up a ticket on the floating motel by making Noah an offer he couldn't refuse. And if Noah did refuse, the dragon planned to kill Noah and pirate the ship. He would have a nice dinner of 2 kinds of animals every day for the length of the trip, however long that would take. Unfortunately for the dragon, Noah had prayed to Yahweh for protection from the goons and thugs from China. And when the dragon approached the ship, Noah turned and ran and closed the motel ark doors and quickly tried to sail away. The dragon got bogged down in a thick pit of mud and cursed Noah, the Yellow Emperor, and Yahweh himself. A sympathetic unicorn who was nearby helped the dragon free himself. Seeing that the waters rise upon the face of the earth, the dragon and unicorn mated in the branches of a date tree until the waters drowned them both. So to this day, the locals say the phrase, quote, trying to get to heaven before they close the door, end quote.
I love that.
I have a couple pieces. I'll read them if you don't mind.
No, please. Thank you.
I tried to choose some that were a little bit shorter and lighter. This one's called Animal by T. Pascal. I chewed the inside of my cheek today. I've switched from omnivore to cannibal. What inspired that was I had bitten my lip. I just have one more.
Wonderful.
This one is called Helen Keller by T. Pascal. Love is blind to flaws. Anger is deaf to reason. Ignorance is numb to lessons. Pride doesn't ask questions. How many live this way?
I like that. That's very nice.
And it's not a question either. In the, there's a period at the end of that last statement there. It's like,
what does inspire you to write?
Every day that I walk through life and do stuff and see things, everything around me inspires me. Everything that I see, everything that I read, do, study. And I'm sitting on at work, or I'm walking down the street going to lunch or something like that, and I hear people talking to each other, and sometimes I can't even believe that they're actually saying it.
Yes.
Because when I'm writing it down, or I'm sort of capturing that conversation, maybe I can use it later. I keep thinking to myself, people are never going to believe this. If I wrote this down,
yes,
people would say, this guy is insane. And you're like, no, that actually happened. It's a direct quote from people on the street.
I'd like to read something that you wrote about yourself.
Okay.
I am the world's most famous, humble person. I'm not bragging. I'm just telling the truth. People from all over the world have come to experience my humility, and I graciously accept them into my presence. You haven't heard of me? See how humble I am? What inspired these words?
That's actually has a really interesting backstory, the humility part. But in all seriousness, before I go there, I did want to say, also I am very humble, or try to be.
Yeah, I really appreciate that about you, T. I'm the very same way. Those words hit home to me, and that was why I wished to read that about you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, basically, in the way that I look at it is, I'm not any better or any worse than anyone else.
Exactly.
That basically, I am the same as every single person I know, or whoever lived or died or whatever.
We all
now,
are. We're all flawed humans.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of that quote, that actually does have a history. When I was applying to college, you had to write, your college essays, and you had to, in some cases, you had to give certain words about yourself that meant something. So I literally just chose, I suppose you shouldn't say literally, I'm a writer, I shouldn't have done it. I actually really did go into the dictionary and choose words pretty randomly. So I forget what all of them were. I could probably go look it up. But one of them was humble. So I wrote that down as one of the 3 words that described. And I figured it was good enough because I'm just applying to go to college. Let me in already. I don't really care. Why do I have to fill out these forms and come up with these letters and essays? Anyway, so I sent that off. And then we went to the matriculation, which was where you basically get accepted to the school, right, or whatever. So we were going through that, and they were reading off some of the statistics of the class. We have this many people from this state, or this many people from that country. And they go, here are some of the common words that describe people. And so they said, intelligent, witty, funny, whatever. And one of you said that you were humble. So out of a class of, I don't know, I think there were about 500 people in the class. It was a pretty small college. I'm the only person who put humble on their admissions essay. I may have been accepted to that college only because I put that one word there on my application. You think about that. So
that's what you have to do.
They said, who was it here? Because we were all kind of in this gathering, and they said, which one of you put humble there? And I could not raise my hand to admit that I had put humble, because I was like,
you were too humble.
Yeah, I'm too humble to admit that I'm humble, but I wasn't even thinking of that. I was literally saying, I'm just embarrassed that I chose random words, and then someone said that, wow, this guy's amazing. He said he's humble. So,
your family, tell me about them.
Yeah, so my wife and I have been married for 15 years. Mm-hmm. I met her as the receptionist at work. We met at work, and she was the first day that I showed up for the interview. I kind of looked at her and thought, that's interesting. And when I introduced myself, I tried to be very professional. I don't know, I was trying to show off or something. When I sat down at the table waiting for the person to come pick me up to give me the interview, I sat there and read the most important magazine that I could find so that she would notice me.
Oh, gosh.
And later she says she never noticed me that day. But we've been married 15 years. For 10 years, we tried to have children, and we weren't able to. We went through a lot of medical procedures that never could find any problems. So we just decided one day that we were going to adopt. And we decided to adopt, and then we decided on China, just because the process is really easy. And so in 2008, we went to China for 2 weeks, and we met our daughter, who's just beautiful. She's gorgeous. She's the most amazing thing in the world.
She is absolutely beautiful.
And yeah, they say that.
And she's funny. She's just like you. She's absolutely hilarious.
She really is. And, the thing is, I'm so proud of her. And, of course, every father, every parent thinks their children are great. She really is amazing in my eyes. And I can't take credit for it either, because I just adopted her. She's not my physical daughter. So,
no, you can't say that, because there's a difference in a father and a difference in a daddy.
Right.
Anyone can be a father, but it takes a special person to be a daddy.
Right.
And you're her daddy.
Absolutely. It gives me a really warm feeling to say, I've taken these materials and I've sort of made things with them. And yeah, she's wonderful. So that's the greatest thing ever. They said that there's this magic that occurs during adoption. I think adoptive parents say, we never knew that this person could come into our life. And it really did. It is magic.
Oh, kids are great. What are some of the lessons so far that you have learned being a father?
So the most thing that I've learned basically is when you're communicating with people, in this case, a child, you really have to go into their mind or their level.
Yes.
You sort of have to dig in there some way and somehow, and they're not even able to tell you. Even people who are adults who you talk to, they don't know why they're upset, or they don't know what they're thinking, why they're doing this thing. And so working with my daughter has really taught me that. When we first adopted her, basically she was about 13 months old. They just hand you the kid. They literally, physically just hand her to you, and then you go to your hotel room, and it's that's it. You're now a parent.
Wow.
So you have to work through those issues. You just have to communicate. You have to, I don't know how to explain it, but just sort of through force of your emotion or your personality, it's just say, hey, I'm here. I want to help you. I want to work with you. I want to be with you. And so that applies everywhere in every aspect of my life, working with people, meeting people on the street, talking to you on this radio show. That's a huge lesson that I've learned.
Exactly.
I am the same as every single person on this planet, or whoever lived or died. Or
the novel that you're writing, tell me about it, and how did you come up with the concept?
Yeah, so my novel is based on the President of the United States. He's the governor of Kansas. He gets elected to the highest office in the land. He has some strange ideas about how the country should be run and what should happen. I basically got the idea one day. I was thinking, right before the elections, I was thinking to myself, what would I do if I were president? What would be my platform? So I came up with some ideas. Then I thought, I'll never be president because I'm too honest and I'm too direct. I'll tell people off, or I'll tell them they're stupid. But what if this idea of this person who became president, who was very blunt and honest and actually didn't know that much about politics, what if he became president? So that was how I got the idea to create the character. And then basically what I did was just wrote down on a piece of paper, I just drew a timeline of the first couple of 100 days of a president's term in office. Just marked out some events that occur. I started writing. So it really became a whole event, like a whole thing that just took life of its own, basically.
And I've actually been following a story on your website. He has these sort of Tourette outbursts where he has a CIA agent who's trying to catch these outbursts, which are extremely hilarious.
Right, yeah, and there was an incident where he's trying to talk to the maid something, and they have a disagreement, and there's a misunderstanding. So she actually blackmails him. There's a whole line of events that happens from there, too.
Exactly. And he messes up his whole inauguration speech. That was very, very funny. Very funny.
I had to do a lot of research on, presidential politics and the formal, procedures of how things are done. So it was actually a very big learning experience, even though the novel is fiction.
And it's not politically based.
What's that?
And it is not politically based.
No, it's not a political novel either. Actually, I tried to research it so that I could make it seem realistic and, present things, but just put a special light on them, especially twist them or turn them around sometimes.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. So once it's released, which formats are you considering the book to be released in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to probably self-publish. I mean, I'm almost certainly going to self-publish. I don't have an agent or anything like that. I'm going to publish it to Amazon Kindle. And I'll also probably, I have a commitment to sort of like get people to read my stuff without paying a lot of money. So, I know on Kindle, if you list stuff for free, it doesn't get listed properly or whatever. I'm going to try to make it available on a different site, maybe Smashword, maybe on my own website, so that if you don't have a Kindle or you don't want to read it for money, you can actually download it.
Wow, that's wonderful. That is really, really great. Now, people will really appreciate that because your work is absolutely amazing. You call yourself a non-practicing Zenist, and you've developed a correctology project. Explain that.
Yeah. So my personal religious affiliation, I basically have made my own sort of religion. I tried to codify it with a friend of mine at work, and we were sitting around talking about how people want to be right. They think that there's only one thing that's right, or that they're right and other people are wrong. And we sort of agreed that it's better to be correct about things, like to have facts and figures, and not everything can be covered, in black and white. But we still recognize that we'd rather be correct about things, to think about them, to sort of agree on what we think is correct and incorrect, rather than being right and wrong.
More of a philosophy?
Yeah, exactly right. Correctology is the study of correct things. That's how we came up with the name. We basically create a framework of what we think is the way to think about things or the way to look at things. And then we don't tell people what to believe. We just sort of say, these are sort of the guideline principles that we've created. We actually wrote quite a bit of documentation on a wiki site that's available on the internet. Oh. Not enough people have contributed to it. My goal is to have people contribute to it, and then, like Wikipedia, just so people can get on there and create their own, philosophies or add or subtract to what we've written. But it hasn't taken off.
And what is that on Wikipedia?
Yeah, it's I can get you the link. I don't have it with me, but it's available on Google Plus as well. There's a correctology page if you just type correctology.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. I like that. Is it Wilderman?
Wildman. Yeah, that whole thing is how the brain works and how people just go through life. I think that even caveman would have had ADD, and then there's the guy who's like carefully painting the handprints on the wall. Like it's just different styles for different people, whatever we're naturally good at. For me, the way that I keep track of things is actually like, I do have a notepad, and I'm trying to move online. Like, I use my phone with Evernote, and so I can store notes. But actually, the pen and paper, when you whip that out and just jot something down, is faster than trying to type it in on your phone's keypad. But anyway, so I keep track of, I have pages devoted to each sort of major thread. So I have a Wildman page, and I write down things that I think of. Like, one of them says like Wildman's names, like what he's called, and I haven't even written that piece yet. There's Wildman's magical powers. Like, I just write that down, and it just gives me an idea. So when I'm sitting usually I write like around lunchtime, because I have some time to think and people aren't bothering me. I'll sit down at my computer, and then I just thumb through my pages. And I have, if there's a series called How I Almost Lost My Virginity. It's like I describe what happened before I lost my virginity, right? So, and then I kept telling people, like, people write to me like, your stories always end and nothing happens. And I go, yeah, because the story says how I almost lost my virginity. I didn't actually lose my virginity in the story. That story would take like what, a couple hundred words, and then you'd be done.
Right.
So I have an infinite amount of stories to tell about how I almost got to the point where I was not a virgin anymore.
That's actually a very good point to any writer. Author Lemony Snicket, a.k.a. Daniel Handler, he also says the same thing. Always carry a notepad and a pen and things down and eavesdrop. That's what he says. Yeah.
We don't have, there's no right or wrong answers. There's just things that we notice that are correct or incorrect. And we try to choose actually is. And so that was the basis of Wildman. I'm trying to describe the Wildman, who's this mythical creature. And I write conversations that people have had, which is like one part of the Wildman, and then descriptions of what people have experienced when they've seen the Wildman, and that's totally different.
Exactly. Exactly. Tell me the process, how you came up with the whole process of your novel.
Right. I came up with the idea to do it. I described that, and I drew the timeline. So I knew that I had sort of enough to do there. It was stuff that I could churn out. If I can sort of see and understand sort of the general goal of a plan, then I'll be able to implement it. But I was kind of nervous. I never really wrote more than, say, 5,000 words. I'd written short stories. Like I said, about 5,000 words is the most that I've ever done. So I said, can I write 50,000? Is it really possible? It seems like it would be a miracle if I could do that. Luckily, on G+, I posted my outline, the drawing that I made, and I described the character. Immediately, like 10 people were like, oh my God, that's amazing. You should try it. You should write it. I thought, well, all right, fine. We'll see how this works. I'll do it for, I think I said I'll do it for 2 weeks. And I wanted to write 1,000 words a day, which I normally can do no problem. Started writing the first night, I wrote 1,000 words. Second night, 1,000 words. And I was posting these on my blog and posting them on Google+. Nobody was responding. I thought, well, it's not that great, it's not that interesting. So I did the 2 weeks, and I was supposed to have, 10,000 words because I was writing this week.
And as writers, we are our own worst critics. So you're probably feeling like, oh, this isn't going very well. I must not be doing a great job.
Exactly right. I was about 9,000 words. I wasn't at 14,000. Very few people were sort of reading it, I thought. So I posted on there, I said, hey, this is sort of I called it the 10th page that I was on. I said, I'm 10 pages in. If nobody likes this, they're not going to read the rest of the novels. I don't know what the point is, right? And immediately 25 people responded with this is amazing. I've been reading it. I just don't know what to say. They don't know how to respond to it. So they've been reading it, and then I was like, okay, that's it. Every time that I reach out to people, they respond back to me. Continue writing this thing. There's nothing for it. I was like, that's it. I don't know what to say. You have to do it now. You said you were going to do it. You can do it. So every day, basically, for, I think that was in August. It was just before the elections, too. There was a lot of material that was coming out about Mitt Romney and Obama, and all the research that I was doing about how presidential politics, and not the politics, but the procedures, the formal procedures. And then I wrote my inaugural piece. He sort of stumbles through that, and they make mistakes, and he gets up to the podium, and then he sits down again, and he gets up, and he sits down because he keeps thinking they're telling him to come up, but it's not his turn yet. So right there, I decided, that's it. This is great. This is wonderful. I'm going to keep writing it. You basically have to get to a certain point, and I've been actually telling other people that too. They're thinking, how can I write a novel? I've spent so long trying to start it, or I have this idea and I write some scenes. Basically tell people, just put a target that you can achieve that's reasonable for you. For me, it was 1,000 words. I couldn't do 1,000 words, it turns out. So I set my target at 500 words. And I said, I had the target goal of 500 words a day, and I'll do that for 10 weeks. And at first I did it for 2 weeks, right? That was my first goal. Then do it for 10 weeks. And then I had not quite 50,000 words. I'm actually a little short, but at least I hit my target. I actually wrote to the point where now, when I think of trying to add more stuff to the book, that I can't think of anything more that it needs. So I'm done. I'm physically done. The next part, though, that turns out to be the really easy part. The next part was having to find all the errors and all the missing pieces. There was stuff that I was reading through. By the way, I set the book aside. I set the whole novel aside for, I think, 6 weeks in between. So I didn't do anything with the novel for 6 weeks.
Right. Sometimes you do. You have to set it aside and walk away and then come back to it.
Yeah. I set it aside and I didn't touch it. And then I started going through it again. And there were scenes where it was clear to me that I knew what was going on there, but I hadn't written the part that they were referring to.
Right.
So I had to do that. I found on every page, I printed it out on paper because it's easier for me to read it and sort of mark it up.
Right.
I found an average of 15 errors on every single page. So if I found a page that only had 3 errors on it, I was like, whoa, I must be missing something. There's got to be a lot more errors here. There's no way I could write one page without 10 errors in it. It's amazing the number of errors and just small little things that creep up and inconsistencies. So I've done that. Finally, I actually finished that last week.
Wow.
So that's a tough. That was grueling.
Did you find yourself going back? Because I know I've done this, rereading it and then rewriting a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah, no, I told myself I'm not going to rewrite it. I'll fix it up, but I'm not going to rewrite it. Yeah, so I finished the basic editing that last week. It actually was extremely difficult. It was so tedious and so boring. Reading it is fine, but then going through and finding mistakes and grammatical errors and typos and all that stuff, it was just difficult. Finally got those all settled. At this point, I'm writing little pieces, like I mentioned, scenes that might be missing. In a lot of cases, in order to get started, this is back to my advice to writers. when you're writing the first part of the novel, try skipping the first chapter or the first section. Just skip it and start writing the rest. Then go back and sort of add it. That's what I did, like for characters and for scenes. I would start writing the scenes in the middle of the scene.
I have a friend who teaches at Duke, and he suggests that anyone who wants to write, set aside 30 minutes a day, no matter what, 30 minutes a day, and write. Don't do anything else, he said, because if you want to write a novel, set that 30 minutes aside. That's what you do, is write for 30 minutes. Otherwise, you will never get that novel written.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the luxury of having this like hour block of time that I could crank stuff out. I would spend 20 minutes maybe, like sitting there going, oh gee, how do they get to the room so that they can start to have the conversation about something that I'm trying to write.
Right.
And I would write about how they walk down the hallway and they open the door. I was like, okay, that's it, no more. I'm going to start writing the conversation. I don't care how they got to the room. I don't care what kind of seats they're sitting in. That's scenes, whatever I needed to happen. Then go back and say, like,
worry about the details later.
Yeah.
Just
so in a lot of cases, I had scenes where people were there, but I never introduced them. So you have to fix that, obviously. But if you spend all of your time writing sort of the stuff before the stuff that you're writing, you got to just sort of jump in and do it. You got to keep doing it. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm actually fixing those things up. One of the main characters is the Secret Service guy named Johnson.
Yes.
And he's like the personal security detail for the president, for POTUS. And I never actually introduced. He's just there, and they're good buddies.
Right.
But I need to like bring him in. So I actually wrote that scene last night.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're in the presidential limo. This is uncomfortable introduction and like, what is he about?
Okay. Good. Good. Yeah. Because, you're right. You actually haven't introduced him. I just noticed that.
Yeah. He's just there.
Yeah. He's just there. Yeah.
But that's what I purposely did. Get to what you're writing. Jump into it. Don't worry about describing how they got to the place that they're talking. Just write them talking, fix it later. And it's the same thing, like
just over-describing is basically what you're saying. Being too over-descriptive about going into describing the room, being so elaborate, and that's what you mean. Just get to the point, and then go back later and worry about all of the adjectives.
Yeah, exactly. So in my professional career, that's how I've been trained too, is we need to deliver some product or something needs to be done. You can spend a lot of time doing a lot of things that don't actually deliver what needs to be done. So you just do what you need to get done and polish it. You can make it better. You can do whatever you want. But you're delivering something, right?
Right.
And so that's what, for me, is important. That's my advice to other writers. I don't know if I can give advice on it. So I'm doing I've done all the editing. I'm now adding a few more scenes. It's going to be ready to turn over to an editor. So what I've done is I've actually contacted a couple editors. Maybe I shouldn't say this. I don't know. It's like one of the editors was like, he read a sample of my work, and then he's like, wow, this political espionage thriller, it's the most wonderful thing I've read. I'm really interested to work on it.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah, but I had to tell him it's not an espionage thriller. It's a satire. Like, it's actually, if you think it's like a Tom Clancy novel, I think you're going to be disappointed. Like,
that's funny. He thought that.
But I'm going to get like an actual editor, like a professional person that you actually pay to read it and tell you what's missing or not right or whatever. So that's going to be extremely difficult. From what I've heard, like, to get honest feedback on your work, like a lot of people say, oh yeah, it's great. I like it. Well, what would you improve? How do you think I could do better? It's great. It's wonderful, right? I don't know what that feedback will be like when an editor is telling you what they think,
Right, because you're getting your friends telling you how great it is.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm going to pay this person, whoever it is, to tell me how bad my novel is. Then I can fix it up. And then it's a whole process, like publishing. Yes. I still haven't decided on every detail, and I've never done it, but you have to convert it. It's in Microsoft Word. You have to convert it to something else. You convert it to something else, and then take the HTML out, then upload it, and the whole thing. I don't even know how long that. Just the publishing part could take. Oh, I also have to have a cover? It's crazy.
But you said it should be ready by May, no later than May.
Yeah, I'm planning on May, and I'm still on track. If I have it back from the editors by March, I can spend all of April in the final touches on it. And by May, it'll be, I'm still on track for that. So it'll be ready. It'll be amazing, I think, because they have sites where you can publish your book, like have a physical media book. Mm-hmm. It's going to be amazing, I think, to me when I publish my novel and I go to the website and order my physical book, and they'll ship it to me with my cover and my name on it.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be absolutely great. I've greatly enjoyed having you as a guest, Mr. T. Pascal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I look forward to having you again when your book is available and ready and published.
That'll be wonderful.
Thank you. I'm Valerie Clark, host of Instant Karma Show. That was writer T. Pascal. His site again, www.zenith.blogspot.com. Wishing you all light and love. See you next week.